Hey everybody, welcome in. Fire the Cannon 4 here in this second week of September. We are moving right along through the school year, through our football season, our volleyball season. We are hard to believe in terms of games. We're playing game number 4 this week in football, so we're almost halfway home. Volleyball's in district play, so uh, we're moving along. We are moving down the calendar, and before long, it'll be Christmas, and it'll be spring break, and it'll be summer, and we're moving right along. But a lot going on in this time of the year here around Brook Hill. Uh, a lot of athletic events to talk about this week. Is This week on the episode, we're going to visit with head football coach Scott Ryle, of course, volleyball coach Mika Hubbard, and then with cross country off this week, we don't have Coach Josiah White on, and so we're going to visit. I'm going to visit a little bit with Brett Swinney and Vince. Brett and Vince were on the call for NetSN for the football game on Friday night, so I got a chance to sit down and talk to those guys about the game. Had a little fun talking about the environment at Harrington Stadium or on our campus Friday, and it was Brett's first time to attend a varsity game at Brook Hill, so he was pretty pumped about that. Vince has been there a couple of weeks, so you'll want to stick around and hear some of that. It's always fun to me, as members of the Brook Hill family. We I don't want to say we take it for granted, but sometimes we forget how unique the situation is at Brook Hill on Friday nights, especially. And so it's always refreshing to hear outsiders talk about that. So a lot happened last week, and you're going to hear from the coaches. But of course, on Thursday night, the middle school football teams had their first game. The seventh graders had their scrimmage over at Grace. The eighth graders played their first game as well at Grace, and both of those teams the scrimmage, of course, there was no winner or loser. The eighth grade lost a close one. Right after that, the JV game on Thursday night at Grace was another good one. If you were there, it was, being one of the JV coaches, it's actually one of the better JV games I've been a part of. We lost the game 28-26. We were lined up for a field goal at the end to win it, and Grace made a great play and blocked the field goal, and we lost by two. But just a great game, and I tell you, you know, if you have a chance to come out and watch our middle school football team or our JV football team, I would encourage you to do so. Even if you don't have a kid playing on either one of those groups, or you might not even know any of the kids on the team, but I would encourage you to do that, especially our JV guys. Kind of a not a selfish thing, but one of the things I tell those guys a lot is how hard it is to be a JV athlete, and it's really for any sport, right? I mean, a JV athlete is one who spends a lot of time practicing. Is During practice, they may be a scout team type look for a varsity, or uh, really you don't maybe get as much practice time as varsity team. That's just because of time, and it happens in every sport and every school. But for them to come out and get to represent the way they do, man, they play so well. I'm fired up for those guys, happy for those guys. The JV actually plays at home Thursday at 5:30 against White Oak. Middle school's on the road this week, but JV will be in town. Speaking of JV, our JV volleyball team played in the Brook Hill tournament this past week. They finished second place behind Van, but they had a good showing on Saturday in that game, or in that tournament rather, there at Brook Hill. The varsity volleyball team started district playoff last week. You're going to hear Coach Hubbard talk about this in a minute, but they played probably two of the better teams in the state in any classification, but for sure in our classification. So that was a little bit of a challenge for them, but we'll hear about that here in a minute. And then just kind of looking ahead to this week, I mentioned uh, uh, football wise, there's a JV game Thursday at 5:30 at home. Middle school's on the road at White Oak. I'm not sure what time that starts. I think 5 o'clock. And then varsity football will be on the road next Thursday night, or this coming Friday night. So I don't know why I was saying Thursday. This coming Friday night, 7 p.m. kickoff instead of 7:30. So that's make sure if you're coming to the game, you know that kickoff's at 7 instead of 7:30. That one at White Oak. I think it's their homecoming is what's going on. Coach Rowell mentioned that as well. But volleyball will be back at home Tuesday night. They're taking on Dallas Covenant, and I visited with Coach Hubbard about that game. You'll hear in a minute. But Dallas Covenant at home on Tuesday, and then they're on the road at All Saints on Friday. So that's kind of a look at what's going on around Brook Hill in the athletic world this week. Also, want to remind you just a couple of things while we have a chance. Make sure and go follow NetSN on YouTube or on all the social medias. Actually, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter. and on YouTube. Follow them. Follow the Brook Hill Guard social media accounts. It's on Twitter or X and Instagram. It's at Brook Hill Guard, and then Brook Hill Guard Athletics on Facebook. And also on YouTube, you can find Brook Hill Athletic streams on YouTube. That'll give you a chance to see some other games. I know, like home volleyball games that aren't broadcast on NetSN, or the JV game from last Saturday, the championship game of the tournament is on YouTube. You can go watch that. So we try to put all those things out there. Just a credit to our social media team. It is a department that I am in charge of, so to speak, but really we just kind of all do it together. It's not really something that I have to ever say, please do this or please do that, because Coach Mika Hubbard works hard on doing that. She does a great job with our social media stuff. And then, of course, our marketing department just at the school, Travis Albee, Anna Pardo, they're huge helps for us in a lot of things we do, the pictures we get for our social media accounts. But just go follow those, and it'll keep you up to date on everything going on. So we're going to start today's show talking to our head football coach, Scott Ryland. Of course, Brook Hill fell to Grace on Friday night, 23-19, in one of the better games I've honestly. This is my ninth football season involved at Brook Hill, and it's probably one of the better games I've been a part of. Even though we lost the game, I thought it was a great competitive game from beginning to end. Just a lot of back and forth between the two schools on the field, and just a great game. So we'll sit down and visit with head coach Scott Ryle. All right, here with Coach Scott Ryle. And Coach, always a tough one when you lose any game, but the rivalry game on Friday night, a close one, 23-19, and just a lot of good things. Honestly, I mean, as many mistakes that were made in the game, you hate to lose it, but there were still some good things, especially on defense on Friday night.
I thought our defense gave us a chance to win. We put them in some tough spots, and they got us out of them, a lot of them. There's 2 missed field goals after they held up, and I was really proud of how they played. But we had a couple mistakes on special teams and on offense that put ourselves in a bind. But I was excited about how our effort was. I thought our effort was there. We just had some mental mistakes, especially some bad personal fouls that extended their drives, which wasn't good.
Yeah, those couple of things show up really on film on Saturday morning. Speaking of the defense, I think that kind of pull the curtain back a little bit. People don't understand this. What Grace does offensively, it really starts up front. And if you don't give yourself a chance up front, you're probably going to get blown out, honestly. And so I thought that we really took away some things that they wanted to do and made them. We kind of dictated what they had to do, and kudos to them for doing it. But I thought that was really big up front with the 3 linemen and the 4 outside. The 2 outside backers, 2 inside backers played really well.
Yeah, I thought our box play was unbelievable. I mean, they want to run the football, and I think they couldn't. They popped one on us, and then that's just because we had a missed tackle. But other than that, I think we kept the run game in check, and they had to throw the ball probably more than they like to. If you look at their scores and their offense performance the last few weeks, it's been pretty good, and I think our defense did a good job.
And just the environment in general, any rivalry game is big and heated. But it really felt like in the middle of the game, like the game felt like it lasted 6 or 7 hours, truthfully. But also, it felt like it was just one of those blow for blow games. We'd make a play and they make a play, and we make a play. And it's probably one of the better rivalry games. Really, one of the better games I've been a part of. You've been a lot more, but I thought just the environment, and the atmosphere, in the game itself was really good.
Yeah, the momentum definitely went back and forth. I mean, we actually had a chance to take the lead at the very end too, but unfortunately they made a play. But yeah, it was definitely there were some moments where they had the mojo, and then we would take it and they would take it. So as a fan, it was probably fun to watch, but as a coach and as our players, wasn't the outcome we wanted for sure.
So as you go through any season, you have mentioned this to our kids many times. You kind of go in segments, right? You have the first season, which is the non-district schedule, and the second season is the district schedule, and third season is the playoffs. And as we kind of wrap up the non-district portion, I guess people kind of look to this past Friday as the first big moment. But now you kind of got 2 more games to lock in. Talk a little bit about how you approach those 2 weeks and kind of fine-tuning things before district starts.
Well, I think you need to figure out what we're about, and maybe work on some things that you need to move forward. We only have 2 more games when we get district play, and White Oak and Atlanta I think are going to do a good job of preparing us. We're going to kind of see the same type of offenses and defenses we'll see throughout district. But we just got to polish up. Obviously, being a boarding school, some of our kids are a little behind than most other schools. I mean, they arrived July 31st, and So we're kind of behind the eight ball on some of the stuff that we need to get ready, or them actually being in game shape. So I think our our trajectory is going up. I just hope it goes up really fast over the next few weeks.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about White Oak, a team that last year was our first time we'd played them in a long time, and the coach that actually scheduled the games with us has moved on, and they got a new head coach now, and Coach Ludlow, who's come from some bigger schools. But talk a little bit about White Oak and what they bring to the table.
It's interesting. We have three films on them, and every game they're doing something different offensively and defensively. So uh, we're going to have to really be prepared to see a lot of different looks on both sides of the ball. And I know he has a young team, but you can tell they're well coached, and I know coach is going to do a good job with that group of young men.
I think one of the things that you mentioned to me earlier last week that you and Coach Ludlow had talked about is the fact he only has one senior on the team. I think is what he said. You mentioned being a young team. That's tough, and we didn't realize at the time they graduated 26 or 27 from
Yeah,
last year, and
26, I think.
that makes a huge difference. I think one of the big keys that we've talked about the last few weeks is that we're finally starting to get healthy and we're starting to get some guys back. And I think we're even closer. I know Alexander Hutaniemi played last week in the Grace game, and Hayden Watson was back. So I think that's kind of been important too as we're getting those guys back. And I think Gabriel will be ready in maybe in a couple weeks. But talk a little bit about what it means to finally have, I guess, all your weapons in the bag.
Yeah, and those two names, Alexander and Hayden, are big players for us. And you got one at inside linebacker and one playing D and offensive line. That's a returner. Um, that gets us allows us to wiggle some people, move people around, and give us our offensively our best look up front. And then Hayden did a heck of a job. He was out since early last year, so to get him back, I know he was itching to go, and I think he played really well on Friday. I'm excited his growth. He's still just only a sophomore. He doesn't look like a sophomore, but he's going to be a good player for the future.
Coach, we're ready to go on Friday night in White Oak. A different kickoff time, 7 o'clock on Friday night. I believe it's their homecoming. Maybe that is what's going on Friday. But a 7 o'clock kick, and we're looking forward to that one on Friday, Coach.
Thanks. Look forward to it.
I appreciate it. And that was head football coach talking about both last Friday's game against Grace and also this Friday night as the Guard travels to take on the White Oak Roughnecks. Kickoff at 7 p.m. on Friday. And more info to come on that in terms of streaming. We're trying to figure out exactly how and where we're going to get that stream out, but we should have the stream for you on Friday for that one. Um, Speaking of the football game, I mentioned earlier in the show, I got a chance to sit down with Brett Swinney and Vince Johnson of NetSN. Those two guys were on the call Friday night, and they really had a lot of great things to say about our kids and our school. And I'll just sit down and as I sat down with them, I wanted to talk about the game, but really just to hear those guys talk about the school and talk about the environment and talk about how hard our kids played. It was just so much more than anticipated. And look, we're three dudes that like to talk about football and talk about athletics in general. So I hope you enjoyed this little sit down here with Brett and Vince. All right, here with Brett Swinney, Johnson, and Brett and Vince. We're on the call Friday night as we took a loss to Grace, a tough, close loss, 23-19. And Brett and Vince, I know that Vince, that was your second game this year there, so you've kind of been used to the atmosphere. But Brett, it was your first time there, and I think it was a pretty good first time for you to be there. It was a pretty big night.
Man, it was crazy. There were people everywhere. I got a chance to participate in the tailgate. I even texted you. I was like, "Hey, is this cost anything?" Like I was looking around, looking to see if anybody was going to take money, and there's people just giving food away. I'm like, I guess I just go up and help myself. So I went around to a couple of booths and helped myself, and probably gained a few pounds in doing so. But yeah, it was crazy. And Vince and I talked about on air, like just from up top, you could see not only were the stands packed, but the field grass side on both sides. I mean, I don't know how many fans y'all usually have, but I'm sure this was probably your most attended game of the year, I would imagine.
Well, first off, I think Vince will tell you that you can eat what you want to because that hike up and down the bleachers is going to burn those calories off from whatever you
Yeah,
ate.
yeah.
But the crowd was one of the biggest I've seen since I've been there. It's my ninth football season to work there. It was one of the bigger crowds we ever had. It was pretty packed. It's a cool environment. If you guys get to see it from up top, but to be down on the field and look around and see people sitting everywhere and seeing the bleachers full. It was pretty cool. It was a great night. And honestly, Vince, I know that you and I have talked about this in other shows and about other games, but rivalry games are pretty big. And Vince, I
Yeah.
felt like the atmosphere Friday was exactly what a good rivalry game's supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like Brett was saying, it was packed. The tailgating beforehand felt like, honestly, it felt like a college atmosphere, like we talked about before. Um, but yeah, the game was just, it was close, it was intense, um, and everybody was involved. Like, I mean, there was one point. Um, where I want to say it was in the second quarter. I forgot exactly what had transpired, but like me and Brett was standing up, and I noticed the whole home side was standing up, and I'm like, man, like everybody's into it. Everybody's in this game, you know. So I mean, it was a great game. Great
Speaking of
game.
that, one of the things that we do that's unique, some people do this, but not many, is we let our JV guys dress with us on Friday home games. So they get to be a part of the
Oh, okay.
environment. But when you do that, that's a challenge, right? Because you want those guys to be locked in and not be a distraction. And at
Hmm.
halftime, even the coaches were like, "Man, our JV guys are even locked in. Like
Yeah.
they're involved, and they're into it, which made a huge difference." And Brett, you and I were talking a little bit yesterday about the game, and man, just haymaker after haymaker thrown by each side. And the first half was a little slower, right? A little more lower scoring, but both of
Hmm.
us trying to figure each other out. But man, when the haymaker started flying the second half, it was fun.
It was a lot of fun, and just because there wasn't much scoring in the first half doesn't mean there wasn't anything huge going on. I mean, honestly, it could have been 3-0 at halftime. Had the muff punt there inside the 5, and kinda you guys gave them a touchdown almost there. But other than that, I mean, 3 more points were scored. I mean, it was a lot of back and forth. Each team would drive. A defense was kinda do that bend but not break mentality, and
Hmm.
just, force the turnover or the, turnover on downs or the punt. I mean, it was really intense. Like, I've been to a lot of high scoring games this year covering Chapel Hill. They're averaging 70, 60, 70 points a game. Turn into this one, but I felt like I was just as intensely excited at the 0-0 score that was there for most of that first half, because you could tell this game meant something to the kids and to the coaches. I mean, it's one of those, like, you got the Lee uh, legacy. I'm sorry, Tyler High game. You've got
Hmm.
the old White House, Chapel Hill. Like this right here, you can tell, and we've talked a little bit that this will very likely be a district game next year. So it'll be even that much more meaningful next year. But you could tell it meant something.
It did, and on the field, what was amazing, and it's when you know each other as well as our two teams know each other, it's hard to maybe get that competitive advantage. But man,
Hmm.
what I was impressed with, I felt like we had a few things that we could take advantage of them that we were able to get, and just to kind of pull the curtain back now, we felt like they played too much outside leverage in the secondary, and we hit a couple big passes right down the middle of the field that we kind of moved them into our situation that we got. And then on their side, kudos to them. If you play Grace, anybody who plays Grace know they like to run counter, like to run power, like to run jet sweep, all those things. And we kind of took the run game away from them. And kudos to them because their quarterback did a great job of getting the ball out quick on short, passes in the flat or whatever. And so I thought both teams, man, were just like you mentioned, they were locked in. Uh, Big plays on both sides. I know defensively, just on our end, Marcelo Martinez, his first game back, he missed the game because of injury, but he had 15 tackles Friday night, which was huge. Dylan Oots had another huge night with 10 tackles,
Yeah.
and but man, it was one of the most intense games I've ever been part of, especially that I've seen, but especially as a coach, it was pretty fun Friday night. Even and you hate that somebody had to lose that game. Somebody was going to have to lose it, and I especially hate it for our kids. But man, it was a crazy night.
Marcelo knew his family was going to be watching, though, Jeremy, because we had people watching from Mexico. First time that we known to have somebody
Hmm.
outside the U.S. comment, and so I think that's what it was. He's like, man, my family's going to be watching. I gotta step up, and he definitely played a good game.
Brett
Yeah.
Swinney, international superstar, is what we're gonna start calling you. Uh,
Hmm.
your call, y'all's call of the game may be on Sports Center in Mexico this week. I don't know. We'll see. It's possible. Hey, real quick, Brett, I want to give you a chance. You and I visited a little bit after the game Friday or on Saturday, and you have some news you want to break a little bit about NetSN and Brook Hill football.
Yeah, so we've actually added 2 games to our schedule um, for Brook Hill away games. Rob and I are going to be traveling to Dallas and Houston. It's going to be October 13th for the Dallas Covenant game there. And then on the 27th of October, we'll be traveling to Houston to this added game. This wasn't originally on the schedule. You guys added this game, and so man, this is going to be a big time for Edison and Brook Hill. I mean, the fact that we're going to have games away where not all your fans can go, we always are going to get those boarding school parents. We love to cover for them, but now some of the parents that maybe can't make it on the road, or some of the fans that maybe they just go to the home games and they don't travel, they'll get to sit at home and watch the call on NetSN, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it to travel a bit.
You know, for all those reasons, the boarding families that get to sit and watch from home. But man, you're right. Just our fans who live in Bullard. I mean, that's the Villages School is in Houston. That game's going to be a 7 o'clock kickoff, I think. And so, getting to Houston by 7 if you work is almost impossible. Uh, Dallas Covenant on the 13th is another on the north side of Dallas. And once again, unless you can get off early, you're not going to
Yeah,
make it
unless
there
you
in
get
time.
off early. Yeah.
Because let me tell you that you're going to find out, Brett. That's one of the. It's not a hard place to get to, but it takes forever and a day to get there. I feel like because of the 635 traffic. They literally the Covenant School sits directly on the interstate. I mean, if you were to kick a ball out of the back of the visitor stands, it would land on the interstate. It's crazy. But no, we're excited at Brook Hill. I know that Coach Ryle, when I told him you guys were going to add these 2 games, he was pumped about it. And I know he enjoys watching the broadcast. He has family in Illinois that get to watch the broadcast and get
Okay.
to see not just him, but his son Cam on the team. So he's excited about that. And we were talking off the air, us three, that and the views for our games have been huge. And you guys have been in it now for a few years, and to get 700-800 views off of a game is pretty impressive at times.
Yeah. Like Brett saying, Martinez, his family watching from Mexico was pretty cool. Them actually writing us saying that they're in Mexico and stuff. I never would have thought that we were reaching people out that far. You know.
Well, and making a difference, I mean, like it's one thing for all three of us. I mean, I obviously I coach at Brook Hill, but I help you guys out with other things because I just enjoy doing it. It's something I enjoy being a part of is in this internet broadcasting thing and streaming and the shows and all that kind of stuff. But man, imagine sending your kid across the world, and the only way you get to watch them is if us three bozos are on the internet bringing the game, right? Like it's pretty cool. You get to make a difference in a family's life like
Yeah.
that, Brett.
Yeah.
It definitely is, and that's kind of what the core behind why we started this is to reach those families. At the beginning, obviously, we weren't thinking this broad. We were just thinking the grandparent that can't get out of the house to go to the game, or maybe can't drive, or the mom or dad that has to work late and can't make it to the game, or that cousin in California that's maybe they don't get to watch their cousin, or unless they're being broadcast, those kind of things. But now on the Brook Hill scale with the boarding students, I think that's even a cooler, neat feature, where you guys have done a good job of trying to stream those games. But what we're providing is a little bit more, personal. Like we've got
Yeah.
people talking about the game, have the scoreboard up, because sometimes you can see the game on the broadcast, but you may catch it midstream. Well, you don't know what like, especially on like a volleyball. Do you know what the score is, what game it's on? And so us being
Hmm.
able to do that a little bit extra on top, it helps those people watching.
And I think that's important to mention that we're talking a lot about football, obviously, but Keith has been to a home volleyball game. He's come to a few more volleyball games before the year's over. So, and we have a boarding student on the volleyball team too. So if I'm not mistaken, Brett, I think you're going to be on the call on a volleyball game at
I
Brook Hill.
may, yes, that may end up being a Brett Swinney volleyball debut there.
Well, that'll be
Maybe,
interesting.
maybe a double header. It's very possible it could be a double header. And if Vince is off in time, I may drag him to it. But maybe a double header there. I think the Dallas Christian. So you guys play them in volleyball and football the same night in
Yeah.
Brook Hill. So maybe like doing a quick setup there in volleyball, set it up, and then tear down, and then go up to the football stadium and do another setup. So, yeah,
with a stop at the riled up tailgate for dinner, probably.
yes, right in between, of
Mhm.
course, of
I
course.
gotta ask you, just complete side note here. We have a little extra time this week. What was the dish of choice at the tailgate, Brett?
So I went simple. There was some Domino's pizza there, and I went simple with that. But then after I got that, I was like, there's a root beer float over here. So I went over there, and then I saw some cookie cake. Man, I got the desserts, man. That's what I'm saying. I think I might have gained a few pounds there. Uh, I just kind of started right there. There was so much. It was like kind of overwhelming. They had the food trucks along the outside, um,
Yeah.
and I didn't have my buddy to show me where to go. So I just was randomly something about these coaches meetings. I know, and just
Yeah, I know
anyway.
it's tough, and I'm assuming you had Vince's plate waiting on him when he got there to the top, right?
Nah, he had no plate for me.
Well,
But
here's
nah,
the
I
deal.
actually I ate before. So and I had to go pick him up. I'll
I
let
was
him
gonna
tell that
say,
story, but
yeah, I was gonna
so
tell it.
I ate my food cold. I should have just put it aside and went and got something from the
I
tailgate.
Yeah,
forgot about the fact I
but
got a text that said I might have run out of gas or
yeah,
something.
so I did
Yeah.
run out of gas. Actually, I called you right before I ran out, and I was like, "Hey, I was going to tell you, hey, I'm almost there, whatever." I get on Grande, and yeah, I ran out of gas, and so
Mhm.
thankfully, me being the early person that I am always, I was going to be there 3 hours before kickoff, so still had plenty of time to get everything going. But yeah, Vince rescued me, and I won't say how many times that he's rescued me or how many times previously I ran out of gas, but the number is is in double digits on the
It's out
total
there.
run out of gas
It's
time. So
crazy.
it I'm not real good. I have a
Yeah.
bad habit of doing that, but I did make it to the game. Everything worked well, but yeah, Vince wasn't surprised when I called him for the rescue, though.
That's pretty funny. All right, so enough about us because people don't really care about us three. But let's talk a little bit about the game. I know that we've talked a little bit about it and kind of the atmosphere, whatever. But as I talked to Coach Ryle on this week's episode, I think that defensively, especially up front in our front seven, and I know both of you guys text me about this afterwards, like, and defensively, our guys played as well as they could have up front in that front seven. I mean, they ran the ball for 100 yards, and we talked about already that's what they want to do. They want to run the football, and to hold them to 100
Mhm.
yards on 20 something carries was pretty impressive. And we got it from, we got Hayden Watson back this week from injury. Alexander Houtaniemi came back this week from injury. By the way, I heard you guys try to say that name. That's a tough one.
Alexander the Great,
Yeah,
Jeremy, get it
Yeah.
correct.
I appreciate the nickname, but getting those two guys back helped. But the stalwarts of our defense, Brecken Westbrook, Dylan Newts on the end, Luke Middleton. I know that's Vince's guy now. I heard that conversation. Marcelo being back. I mean, really up front, it was I mean, defensively, our guys are playing really well.
Yeah, I think so. I think the main thing I knew was coming in was we knew Grant Turner. I mean, he's kind of well known around the area of being a really good tailback there. And you saw the one time he did break free, that's the potential that he has. So I think to only allow him to slip out that one time, I think I made a comment at one point in the game, and he made a run about 8 yards. I was like, Vince, I think that's the longest run he's had all night. Because you guys
Yeah.
did a really good job, minus that one play of kind of bottling him up and giving him a lot of trouble. I mean, he was getting frustrated. There wasn't anywhere for him to go. And so, I mean,
Mhm.
defensively, um, that was the case. And so I think that your game plan was very excellent. I mean, you did a good job. But you allow a tailback like that to only get out once. I think you'll take that.
Yeah. Um the there was plenty of times where um I think that Grace's offense was pretty frustrated with the fact that they couldn't. I mean, you had the one. There was a one drive where they were within like the 30-yard. They were
Yeah,
close to the red zone, and I mean, it looked like okay they might push this in, but the defense held strong and actually pushed them back, and I could tell they were getting really frustrated with it.
and especially in a rivalry game, Vince, to be able to be we talked to the team this week about what intensity looks like, and intensity sometimes means just an intense focus. It's not just
Hmm.
the being physical, but the focus of our defense to really not have. I mean, there were probably a bust or two somewhere along the way. Obviously, it's going to happen, but man, we were really locked in, and you got to see some of our guys make some plays that we've kind of had, I don't want to, we haven't had them wrapped up, but they've kind of been wrapped up. Xavier Kendrick, for example.
Oh,
Um,
the touchdown from Kendrick was something to behold. Like, I felt for the kid because he had the muff punt in the beginning of the game. I said, well, he can either let that eat at him and it will ruin the rest of the game, or he can try to find a way to get back. And I think his 4 catches, 160 yards, and a touchdown. I think he well then made up for it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that was the point right there. With after that play, I'm like, Brook Hill's got a chance to win this game right here. Like that was, and then it kind of seemed like after that, Grace's defense really just put the clamps on, and they started putting a lot of pressure on McCowan. And when he had time, Jonah had a great game. He was able to get it to his targets, but he
Yeah.
struggled whenever Grace really put pressure on him, and then he didn't get a chance to set his feet, and it really showed there toward the end when just couldn't move the ball when they needed to try to go back down and take the lead.
I thought what
Yeah.
they did to us on defense, man, sorry to cut you off. What I thought they did to
No,
us
you
really
good.
well was they made it really hard for us to run the football in the first half,
Hmm.
Yeah,
especially. And then at the end, when we had to throw it around, they did a really good job of sending just the right amount of pressure, playing that man coverage in the back, and we had a hard time
Absolutely.
finding it. And so, here's the deal: we don't want to lose to those guys. We want to win every game we play, especially in that rivalry. But you got to kind of tip your hat to their game plan as well. I mean, really, I think both teams had perfect game plans for each other. I thought it was just a well coached, a well played. Everybody involved did a great job, and you're right. They just kind of mixed and matched enough that offensively, it kind of as much as we dictated their offense, I feel like they did the same thing to us.
yeah, they didn't
Yeah.
let Durrett have much room. I mean,
Mm-mm.
he when he got the ball, he got 2 or 3 yards max. He just couldn't get away. Kind of the same way you guys were trying to do to Turner. But definitely the run defense for Grace was pretty phenomenal. I didn't really notice until I looked at the stats, but I mean, wasn't a whole lot of ground game attack. It was the passing game, and when it was time to the nitty gritty, they locked in, and the defense did what they were supposed to, and kind of put the stops on you guys' comeback attempt.
It was a great
And
game. Yeah, go ahead,
I
man.
give
Go ahead.
credit to Direct because I mean, you know, even though the run game didn't really get off the ground like you would have liked, he broke a lot of tackles. Felt like it
Yeah,
seemed like the first bit of contact he took was not the tackler that brought him down. And had it been, it would have been less yardage than what it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was fighting for his yards. So, uh, big credit to him.
You're going to get everybody's best effort in that game for sure. So,
Yeah.
one quick story before we move on to talk about White Oak, and I told you guys off the air I was going to tell you the story on the air because I feel like it's worth that. So, Aaron Pakarinen, who's one of our new players from Finland,
Hmm.
was playing nose tackle, and he got a sack late in that game. Him and Sammy Williams kind of combined to get a sack there at the end, and he did a dance that, and when I went back and watched the stream, you guys mentioned that's a pretty cool dance right there. Well, the story behind that dance is that's actually what we call the penguin. So, we, as you guys know, I signal plays on the sideline, and one of our calls is a penguin. And I think that Coach Jacob Agnew did that to me to make me look like a fool. So I'd have to dance like a penguin, but it's okay because I just embraced it as you would expect me to. And so last year, actually, our defensive lineman said, "Hey, when I get a sack, can I do the penguin?" I said, "Sure, I'll do it back, whatever." And it kind of hung around. But Aaron this year is new to us, and he had heard about it from another one of our Finnish players that graduated last year. Had told him about the penguin, and so it was very unscripted. But he gets the sack Friday night, and he busts out and does a penguin dance. But he had a little extra hop in his step. It wasn't just like a penguin waddle. He was like, I mean, it was pretty impressive, honestly. And so I had to do it back. Don't go back and watch the stream because you'll definitely see me doing it back to him.
Ah,
But that's just it's kind of our love language between the D linemen. That's just what we
so
do.
everybody that's listening to this, go back and watch Coach Hubbard's penguin dance. Is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's the kids love it. There's a lot of TikToks and Snapchats or whatever of me doing the penguin. And hey, man, you just got to kind of embrace it if you're going to do something silly. But that's what it is. So the penguin. Uh, let's move on and talk a little bit about White Oak, Brett. You guys are well versed in what's going on in East Texas, and although you may not have seen film on White Oak, you've paid attention, seen the scores and the results and who they're playing. They've played a very good troop team. They played a very good harmony team. And this past week they played Harleton, who maybe is not at that level, but Harleton's still a good football team. They're 0-3, a new coach. But talk a little bit about what you know about White Oak and kind of what you expect for Friday night.
Yeah, White Oak with the new coach. I mean, well, it's tough. White Oak's just they've had a tough start. They've played some pretty good teams, but um, I think just they're just a little down this year. It's going to take a while. When you get a new coach in, putting in their system, trying to figure out what's going to work with the guys that you have, because the system that you may be used to using may not fit the personnel that you have. So I think saying that, they've just had a rough time at it this year, and I think if you're Brook Hill right now, you're looking to go over there and maybe take out some frustration of this loss to Grace, on White Oak. Now, I feel for White Oak because there's some frustration to be taken out. You lose to your rival in a game where you could have easily won it. I think that's almost worse than the other where you just get blown out and you knew you just didn't have a chance. I mean, these guys competed for 4 quarters and had a chance to win and thought they should win. And so I think you use that motivation next week. All right, let's come out and because district's coming up and that's what you guys are preparing for. And so it's a good chance to get back on the winning track and move on to another game at home that we'll be covering the following week. That'll be another test with a good team here in East Texas. So a couple of public school games coming up, and it'll be interesting to see how you guys do.
So last year we played those guys at home. We won the game 55-29. We had a 38-14 halftime lead. Of course, completely different. Talking, as we prepared for them, we found out they graduated 26 seniors from last year's team, and they
Wow.
have just one senior this year. So they're really young, and I think that Coach Rao talked about that in our interview this week. That is definitely playing a factor when it comes to that. But offensively, they are much different than what we've seen. I was telling you guys off the air, Vince, but it'll be a challenge for our defense in a way because what we've seen so far is kind of spread it out, try to get guys out in space, and get
Hmm.
your eyes to be wrong. And these guys really, from what it looks like, they just kind of want to line up and try to run it over you.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
hopefully,
So,
hopefully that's not the case.
so this will be a test. This will be a test to see if we are who we say. Or I say we like I'm Brook Hill.
You are, man.
Yeah. Okay. If we are who we say we are.
You are Brook Hill. So it'll be fun. And that game, guys, I'll say this again. Coach Rao talked about in the interview, but it's a 7 o'clock kick this week. A little different for us. It's their
Okay.
homecoming, so they got some other things going on. So it's a 7 o'clock kick over at White Oak, and it's a rare thing. You guys may not think this is important, but as coaches, we have to wash uniforms. It's a grass field, the only grass field we're going to play on all year. So when you're the home team or you're the road team on grass, it's kind of scary because you wear white pants.
I
So
was
we
gonna
got to
say
do something.
white. Yeah, you're gonna wear
Oh
white.
yeah.
We're
Ew.
gonna do. We're gonna wear something a little special.
So is
On
it
'em.
your laundry week this week then?
No, I hope not. Fans of Brook Hill remember a few years back we played at Huntington on their grass field, and we were white, and it rained for like 4 days straight, and we actually got famous. We took a lot of videos. We washed those suckers for 5 days. I felt like to get them back clean, but no, it won't be my laundry. We'll find somebody. We'll pick on one of the new coaches, maybe. We'll let Coach Copeland or Coach Harrison do that this week.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
but
somebody
it'll be
else's
fun.
job.
Well,
I don't
guys,
blame you on that one.
I appreciate you coming on and joining that this week's episode. It was a little shorter with interviews, so I was glad to get you guys on and talk a little bit about the game and the new broadcast for NetSN, and of course, I know our families appreciate you guys and what you're doing with the broadcast and the shows and all that kind of stuff. And just another chance to say thank you. And Vince, you are Brook Hill. Don't ever let anybody tell you're not. And
Hey, well, I got this hat on. I've been
that's right.
wearing this
Man,
bad
you know
boy.
what? I don't even want to see that hat because
I've been wearing
I,
this bad boy
Yeah,
all week.
no, listen, I've
It
given
feels
hats,
good. I love it.
I've
It's
given
so
T-shirts, and
fitting.
I've got nothing back from Coach Hubbard.
Listen,
I don't know what I'm
Vince,
doing
I got to
I
be
wrong.
I
honest.
I got the NetSN version too, but it's something about this fit. I don't know what it is,
I
man,
know,
but
man.
it feels comfortable on my head.
Yeah,
I
You
okay.
I
know.
feel bad because you're right. Now, Thursday night, Brett came over to the JV game, Vince, and he was like Santa Claus. He had a bag and he was handing out shirts and hats and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
every coach over. All right, I gotta hook Brett up, so I'll make sure Brett gets taken
Well,
care
and
of.
I know I don't know which coach it is that's got a son that's pretty tall.
Oh, that's
Uh,
Coach Riles' son. That's
is it
that's
That's
Coach
okay?
Coach.
Riles'
Yeah,
youngest
that's
I was
son.
that's
Yeah.
what's his
I
name?
was like,
Cam.
hey, you must be coach's son because he had but it wasn't. Does he have another son?
So Cam's on the team. That was Zach. Zach's like 6'5", and he's
Oh,
one
okay.
of our ball boys.
Ball boy.
Wow.
Hope he plays
Yeah,
basketball.
but he's an 8th grader.
Oh,
I
6'5"?
mean, he's an
He's
8th
goodness
6
grader.
foot
gracious.
five.
He's 6'4", 6'5". He's a big man. He's taller than me. I look up to him.
I was like, I know your dad must be a
Golly.
coach. I didn't know. And he said, yes, sir. I was like, okay, I like your hat. That's a nice hat you got there.
Yeah, that was Zach. I saw him wearing that after the game Friday night, and but no, I'll make sure Brett gets taken care of. I guess, man. So I guess it's probably fair
Yeah.
enough. We'll let him.
I'm telling you, when he put this on, he probably won't take it off because I don't.
I love it. I've been saving it for the right moment. I don't know when that moment's going to be, but I have mine. I look at it every day. I'm like, is today the day I want to get that white hat dirty? No, I'm going to wait till next.
He's
And
just,
So,
see, that's what I'm thinking too. I'm like, I'm gonna have to find a way to clean this bad boy because I got to keep this for a while.
yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate it, and we'll talk more next week.
All
all right.
right.
And thanks to Brett and Vince again for coming on and visiting with us a little bit today about Brook Hill football. Just a reminder, once again, check out NetSN on YouTube, on social media, but also the app. We talked a little bit about the app both this week and last week, but the NetSN app is unique in a lot of ways. Number one, if you are just a football fan in East Texas, you can get scores that are updated live. People at games are updating scores as you go throughout the night on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever day the games are on. They have a pick 'em contest you can be a part of every week. There's 10 games you pick the winners of, uh, and there's weekly winners as well as um, overall winners for the season. And I mentioned this because I don't want to brag. I'm sitting at 21-9 overall through 3 weeks. I'm 3 points out of first place, um, and I'm in 13th place overall. But I see a couple of as I look through the leaderboard. I do see a Brook Hill name or two on here. Um, Tony Vining, of course, the dad of new Brook Hill student Tyler Vining is on there. And I'm trying to remember. I think I remember seeing another Brook Hill name. Let me get on here and look. It's great radio, by the way, when I'm sitting here talking about something I'm looking at on my phone. Yeah, Leland Watley on here. Leland joined the contest. So get in there, see how many games you can pick each week. Hopefully, you do better than Leland. Sorry, Leland, but 4-6, you're 1 week in there. You're gonna have to do better than that. But pick 'em scores. They also release a poll every week for a couple of different classifications. But just check out the NetSN app, and it's football only now, but it'll be more as we go along throughout the school year. Want to wrap up the show today talking to head volleyball coach Mika Hubbard, and I mentioned at the very beginning that they started district play this past week, getting two very good teams, the McKinney Christian and Prince of Peace. And if you know anything about TAPS volleyball, you know that Prince of Peace, especially, is a name you hear a lot about in the end in state tournaments. But our girls, they went 0-2 on the week, but even in 0-2, and I mentioned this to Coach Hubbard because I think it is important to mention that while you're chasing maybe two of the better teams in the state, the gap has shrunk tremendously. But I'll step aside now and let you hear from head volleyball coach Mika Hubbard. All right, back here with Coach Mika Hubbard. Coach, it's been a good year so far, and then it was like, welcome to district. We'll give you two of the top teams in the state, right? Uh,
Exactly.
but I'll tell you what, though, Tuesday night against McKinney at home, even though I guess it ended up 3-1, maybe it was one of the better games I've watched us play over the last few years. We were really. I hate to even say we were really competitive because that sounds kind of silly, but we had a chance to win those games. I was really proud of our effort and the way we played on Tuesday night.
I agree. I think that the score didn't really tell all on Tuesday.
I was thinking about that after the game. I was like, man, the kind of the part that stinks about volleyball is you can lose 25-24 and it still counts as a 1-0 loss. I mean, so it's just a weird. I guess I guess y'all are used to it. You're used to it, especially now being a coach. But you had McKinney at home on Tuesday in a really competitive game that our girls played really well in. You go on the road Thursday night to Prince of Peace, who is a annual, state contender, and you fared just
Hmm.
as well there. I think one game maybe got away from it, but the other ones were all really close too. Talk a little bit about, I guess, how you, I guess, I don't want to say recover, but after you play two of the better teams in the district, and now you get to kind of settle in and get back on track this week.
Yeah, and that's exactly kind of how it played out. Our first two games last week, top two out of the three teams in our district, does make for a tough week to open district play. So our plan going into this week is to try to get the girls, we've been going for a long time, it feels like. Just going to try to get the girls to relax, and we're going to focus on having fun this week, and just going back to the basics and focusing on us and playing our game. And that's really my focus for this week.
And I guess that's the great news about volleyball and having so many games in the district schedule is that losing 2 in the first week doesn't hurt you. You
Right,
settle back in, but what does hurt you is letting those 2 games beat you the next time, right? So,
right.
you're at home Tuesday night against Dallas Covenant, and that's a team I believe, coach, you split with them last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And of course, they were early in your district schedule last year and still kinda settling in. It's a much different team now than it was a year ago. Talk a little bit about Dallas Covenant on Tuesday and what that looks like.
We're looking at it to be a good game. Again, we're going to focus on us and what we can control, our mindsets, our attitudes, and really just hone in on what we do well. And we're going to go with that's what we need to take care of the games this week.
Absolutely, and then, a little bit different schedule this week, you'll be playing on Friday afternoon over at
Yes.
All Saints, and we were talking about that the varsity game will actually start at 4:30 with the JV afterwards, so a little bit different than what you're used to seeing, so make sure if you're gonna
Hmm.
go check that out, you do that. Uh, Obviously, it's a crosstown team, and a lot of our girls know a lot of their girls. Talk a little bit about All Saints and if you've seen them on film or kinda what they look like and what we can expect on Friday.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit about All Saints. They've been doing pretty well this year. And especially, I think in one of the local tournaments they played in, they did well. So, last year it was also a good kind of similar to Covenant, competitive matchup. And our girls are familiar with some of their girls. They know each other, so I expect that to be a good rivalry match as well. But we're just going to play our game.
There were a lot of girls last week that really kind of stood out to me. We've talked about Juliana Mize a lot, but just
Yeah,
watching her confidence level as she has just improved so much from a year
yeah,
ago to today, and just kind of the leadership that she's shown as just a sophomore. I mean, you can see the other girls on the floor are looking for her or looking to her in those big moments. Talk a little bit about how she's grown and how she's evolved as a leader and on the floor and off the floor.
yeah. I'd say definitely her confidence, not only from last year to this year, but from August 1st, no, July 31st this
Yeah,
year
yeah.
to today. Just her confidence, believing in herself. She believes in her teammates more than anything. And what she has been working on is her confidence in herself. And I think it really shows in how she's performing on the court, offensively and especially defensively. Last week, she's really picked it up and been coachable and has really tried to expand her reach defensively, and it's really been helping us.
And I don't think unless people know her real well, the amount of time she puts into playing volleyball. Now, she does a lot of other things. She's a tennis player and a basketball player, but she
Yeah.
really spends a lot of time honing her craft on the volleyball court, and she's done a great job.
Hmm.
And you're right, her confidence level, I noticed the same thing too. As somebody who's been around her, just has been a lot different. Talk about one of the things I think that's made your team kind of turn that corner this year has been they really enjoy being around each other. They really enjoy
Yeah.
being together, and even though you've added a few new pieces this year, the cohesiveness and the camaraderie and the teamwork, I guess, has been really a huge thing that we've noticed this year.
Yeah. And I think, it starts before we start our season. We really try to find ways and opportunities to get them all together, to have fun together, before we buckle down and get serious, in the middle of season. And I think that really helps to do that and to focus on that.
Yeah, I think as a coach, and you would know this, and people that have coached before know this. If you can get them to trust in each other and trust in you before the bullets start flying, so to speak, it
Right.
makes a huge difference.
Right.
Well, Coach, we're looking forward to a great week. Tuesday night, JV 5:30. I'm assuming still varsity to follow.
Yes.
We had a great crowd there last Tuesday night. I
Yeah.
hope we get one again there this week. I know that crowd may not seem like it plays a huge role in it, but Coach, I think you would definitely say it does.
I definitely agree. I think we have been very lucky to have the support base, the fan base that we have had just in our few home games already this season. And it definitely plays a huge role in our energy level, our intensity level, and just the atmosphere of games at Brook Hill. It makes it a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we appreciate it, and we'll see you on Tuesday night.
Thanks.
And that was head volleyball coach Mika Hubbard. And make sure you're in attendance Tuesday night as they take on Dallas Covenant with a JV game at 5:30 and the varsity to follow. I've been told that the theme for tomorrow or for Tuesday's volleyball game is Jersey night. So look, it's not just for students. If you're a parent and you're going to be at the game, wear your jersey if you got one. But Jersey night tomorrow night for the volleyball game. It's been another great week, and we thank you for listening. But I do want to mention that we continue to talk between myself and the NetSN guys about the number of you who are listening to the podcast, the number of you that are watching the games on YouTube. You heard earlier that Brett and NetSN are going to cover 2 more away football games. They're going to live stream those, and it's truly because we're doing all these things. Number one, because we want you to know what's going on. Number two, we love doing it. But number three, it's because of you guys. Truthfully, you guys are really doing a great job of getting the word out there about both our podcast and the games. And it really says a lot about how much you guys care about our athletes. Because truthfully, this is not about me. It's not about our coaches. It's not about anything other than wanting our kids to have their name out there and be recognized, and for you to know what's going on behind the scenes. And so that's a great credit to you guys that we're doing the things we are in terms of numbers. So keep sharing it, keep talking about it, and we'll just keep doing this thing and trying to make it the best we can as we go along. As always, if you have suggestions, if you want to help out, if you want to be a part of anything we're doing on NetSN with our shows or live streaming games, if you're interested in helping live stream games and you think it's something you could do, man, reach out to me, because I know that between myself and Brett Sweeney, we would love to have any more help we can get with doing all these things here for Brook Hill and our student athletes. So that'll do it for this week. And we will see you either on Tuesday in the gym, Thursday and Friday at football games, or maybe just next week here on Fire the Cannon. We'll talk to you later.